designer of the game Fourth Millennium, and today my intent is to show the viewer all the components for the game and also how to operate an empire. If you look at the board that I have up, that is the main game board, the primary component of which is the stylized map of the Milky Way galaxy. It was originally based on diagrams of the Milky Way galaxy, but that proved a bit too irregular for competitive gameplay. So what I've done is rendered the map symmetrical along the three axes that you see the white lines delineate, and also through a fourth horizontal axis. So there is some symmetry to the board now. There aren't quite as many nooks and crannies as there were with the original map. The map is composed of 40 columns and 36 rows of 8/10 inch hexes across the flats. The board overall is 36 by 30 inches. In the map, what we see is what Fourth Millennium still calls terrain. You be the judge of whether that's the case or not. But as you can see from the key over here on the right, there are 4 different levels of cells, and what those levels represent is relative stellar density, from the least dense in stars, which is primarily intergalactic space in the dark black, and is called level 1, up to the highest density, the actual stellar arm hexes that are in gold, is level 4. Levels 2 and 3 are gradients between the two. Game turn is in the upper right corner, game turn box. There are enough turns on this game turn box to represent 4 millennia, going up to 7,000 AD from the beginning turn of 3,000 AD. Okay, next is victory point table. 100s, 10s, and 1s. I'm not real crazy about tracks like this because you have too many counters to stack up on each other, but adding a victory point track around the outside of the board would make this quite a bit bigger, probably 36 3/4 by 30 3/4, 37 by 31. Haven't taken that leap yet. Research points is a track that goes from 0 to 35, and this is where each player keeps track of how many research points they have accumulated through what their empire generates plus what they themselves generate on their player mat through their action choices. Since the most expensive technology one can purchase in the game is 35 points worth, I decided that's where the track would end. Okay. Next is player order. Goes from 1 through 6, and during the game, at the end of each turn, first player always rotates to the player on the left. So there are reasons for that were borne out during playtesting. Previous to that, it was a random affair who was going to go where, when, each and every turn. And below that, in the bottom right corner, we have the 4 technology tracks for the game. And from left to right, they are the civilization tech, which determines whether or not you can build a capital in your empire or multiple capitals. Also, how much energy your civilization can expend towards diplomatic efforts with the autonomous races that we find in the game. And also how much they can aggressively pursue research. A more advanced civilization should be able to do more of that type of activity than a less advanced civilization. The second track is colonization tech. And colonization in this game means improving a place that you've already lightly settled, and making it more inhabited and more advanced. So when we look at cells, this will make more sense. The next one is explore tech, and this is just basically how many exploration efforts you can make on a given 100-year turn. So at the beginning of the game, level 1, you can only explore 1. If you go to level 2, you can explore 2, and so on. In addition to which, in the bottom left corner of each of those boxes is the jump capability, with the jump capability of 1, which again is what you start the game with. You can jump an exploration effort 1 hex away from your current empire, which would mean it would be an adjacent hex to your current empire. At jump level 2, which is Explore Tech 4, you can jump 2 hexes away from your empire. That is going to be the initial requirement for building multiple capitals, is having another set of contiguous cells that are not adjacent to your empire, and that each of those is called a community within your empire, and each community can have its own capital. And since capitals are the best generators of victory points, that's one of the goals, one of the intermediate or long-term goals actually for each empire. The final category is military tech. As you can see, it also has a jump level, and that jump level pertains to how far away from their empire a player's fleets can go. And then note that it too is in even number increments of 2s, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, so on. That determines how far your fleets can move within your empire, how many of your fleets can be stacked for combat, how easy it is to maintain existing fleets, the maximum number of fleets you can build on a turn, and last but not least, the ability for your fleets to wage war. Okay, and as you can see, each goes up to level 10, and the white number in the top left corner from our perspective is the tech point cost to get to the next level. So you can see that for each tech they have the same costs for going to the next level: 4, 6, 9, 12, 16, 21, 26, 30, and 35. Right, so that's the board. Let's zoom back out. And now we're going to look at the components. The first one I'm going to cover is the action card deck. There are 100 action cards in the deck, and they are numbered 1 to 100. These have 3 important pieces of information on them at least. And we're going to look at this one first. And let's zoom in on these guys. Okay, so this is card 26. And the cards are generally divided into two pieces. You have the Explorer result in the top box, and in the bottom box you have the action or reaction section of the card. So whenever the player conducts an Explore action on their turn, they're going to draw a card from this deck. If they were to draw this particular card, they would find something interesting in that sector, each hex being a sector, and they would draw an investigation card, which is this deck right here. We'll get to that in a minute. Okay, let's look at some more of these cards here. Okay, so this is your typical response when you do an exploration attempt. The vast majority of cards in the deck are nothing of interest. Okay, in this card we see an action below in yellow that's beneficial to the player holding the card. That should they hold this card, they could play later in some other turn and give themselves a bonus. Okay. Here's an orange. This is working out nicely. The odds of this coming out in this order like this. But an orange background for the action is a reminder that this is an effect that is inimical. So you would play this on another player who might be getting a bit ahead of you in the game, and you want to slow them down, put the brakes on. Okay, there's another interesting. Nothing of interest. I'm looking for some cards. Here we go. In the action box, some cards have immediate, and that means that the player drawing this card must deal with this card immediately, even if they have remaining cards to draw. And they particularly have a detrimental effect, although some of them are beneficial. And they always affect the player drawing them. Okay. Here we go. So here's an Explorer result. When you get a gold box, that means that there has been an alien race discovered. We call them ARs in the game. They are races that are different from you, but not represented by other players, or not controlled by other players, I should say. So in this particular case, if this is a 1 or 2 player game, they will discover an alien race. If there are 3 or more players, nothing happens. This is how we scale frequency of alien races showing up. Obviously, if 6 players are doing explorers, they're going to be explorations. They're going to be drawing more cards than 3 players performing explorations. Okay, so that's the action card deck, and this gets reshuffled every turn. And as players grow their empire size, and if we look back at the map, down in the bottom right corner, you're going to see draw limit at Civ Tech 3. So you draw as many cards as your Civ Tech number is until you get to 3, after which you do not draw any more cards than 3 in the game. At Civ Tech level 5, you reached your hand limit size. So when you're at the beginning of the game, Civ Tech 1, you're drawing 1 card a turn, and you can keep 1 card, forcing you to discard anything else you draw. Civ level 2, you draw 2 cards, and you get to keep 2 cards. Civ level 3, you draw 3 and keep 3. Civ level 4, you draw 3 and can keep 4. In Civ level 5, you can draw 3 and keep 5. And thereafter, those numbers remain the same. Okay? So let's zoom back out again. Let's look at the investigation cards. So when you encounter something interesting in a sector, you're going to draw a card from here. There are 70 cards in this deck. Slightly more than half of them are artifacts. So here's an artifact. Let's zoom in on this. Okay, so artifacts are something that were left over by a race from Andromeda about 160,000 years ago, and they're essentially tripwire devices. Every time somebody starts examining or testing or experimenting with one of these artifacts, there's a quantum entangled particle in the Andromeda galaxy notifying this race, this big, nasty, excellent killing machine of a race, that somebody in the Milky Way galaxy is once again trifling with different stars, different planets within the galaxy. Okay, they left these behind for that effect after they had annihilated every advanced life form within the galaxy, because that's what they do. They kind of enjoy it. Okay, so each of these artifacts has a primary color, this one being yellow, and then in the top left corner it tells you how many of that type of artifact is in the deck, out of 70 cards. So with the yellow artifacts, they are 10% of this deck. So that makes them pretty common. In the bottom right corner, you see how many points you get when you turn in one of these cards, two of these cards, or three of these cards. And they must all, again, be matching in color. So with if you turn in one of these, you will get either 3 victory points or 3 research points. You cannot split it up. It has to be one or the other. If you turn in a pair of these, you'll get 7 points, and if you turn in a trio of these, you will get 12 points. Okay. Let's look at some of the other cards. The other little less than half of the deck are event cards. Basically, they tell you an event. Some have no effect, as this one does, or does not. This one is going to help you. So you're going to discover ancient civilizations. You're going to discover ancient battle fleets, shipyards, all sorts of stuff like that. There's about 33 or 32 cards with events like that on them. Okay. Now, when you collect artifacts, they do not count towards your civilization tech hand limit. Okay, these count above and beyond your action cards that you've been keeping. Okay. The third deck and final deck in the game is a 36 card deck of the alien races, the ARs themselves. So let's take a look at one of these. Okay, so this is race number 15 of 36. This is the Ponfar. And on the left below the race number is the box that keeps the counter that shows its current military tech rating. Below that is the chance of them advancing technologically on any turn. In this case, about a 13% chance. Next to that is where fleets are kept, because fleets do not stay on the board if they're not in combat. They go back to a reserve for the AR on the AR's card for the player on the player's mat. To the right of that, we see the starting empire size and military technology level for the various game turns or states during the game. So at the beginning, turns 1 through 5, if you discover the Ponfar during those turns, they will have 2 cells in their empire, and they will have a military tech rating of 6. Okay. To the right of that is the diplomatic status track. What this does is it shows for each race who has become adjacent to the Ponfar Empire what their disposition is towards that player. So the arrow, which is shown in the top green box, indicates the general disposition of the Ponfar. So this is a very friendly race, and as you can see, there are victory points available to those players who have one of the top 2 diplomatic statuses with the Ponfar, friendly or allied. Okay. Below the fleets is the diplomacy box. This is where players can place diplomacy cubes to ameliorate the card draw results shown below that in the disposition column. So every turn there's going to be a card drawn for each autonomous race that's out there, and it's going to be referred to against the disposition table. And the disposition table has 2 results on each type of outcome. So on cards drawn numbered 1 through 37, the color coding for initial encounter indicates that they're going to be allied with you. They're just the best bowling teammates you've ever had in your life. Okay. Subsequent to initial encounter, you'll be using the number on the right, some of which have arrows going up or going down. These dictate whether your relations with that race improve or regress. Okay? If they ever get to hostile, they will attack you. Okay? Not likely with the Pon Farr. You can see your relationship with them only worsens on an action card draw of 96 or higher. It's a 5% chance. They're very friendly. Next to that is a separate card draw done for each AR, which reveals their production. So they're either going to, on a 1 through 30, they're going to colonize no new cells, or create no new cells. 31 through 78, they're going to create one new cell to their empire. They're going to grow by 1. 79 through 93, they're going to grow by 2. 94 and up, they're going to build fleets. But the F/2 means they're only going to build half as many fleets as they otherwise could. Generally speaking, when an autonomous race or alien race builds fleets, you'll see this on the Bega here, at 91 and up on the production table, they will build one fleet for every cell in their empire. So if their empire is 10 cells in size, they're going to build 10 fleets. If it's an F/2 result, they're only going to build half as many, and they're going to drop fractions, but the minimum fleet build would be 1 fleet. So each of these cards describes the behavior of a unique race. Okay, some will be quick to be friendly with you, but also can pivot in diplomatic relations suddenly, and others will be stable, very stable. Some will be medium or small in size, empire-wise, and some will be big. Some will grow slowly, some will grow fast. Some will advance in military technology slowly, while others will advance rapidly. Okay. And currently there are 36 of these in the deck, but it's quite easy to generate more if more needed for perhaps an expansion or even in the base game. Okay. So that's the 3-card decks. Let's look at the alien pieces. So we have 3 sets of pieces here. The first one is the diplomacy cubes I mentioned before that players will be putting on the different races. Okay, and they just look like a little bitty cube, and they can change colors in Vassal by flipping them. Okay, come here. Okay, that was fun. Empire cells. Let's drag one out. So this is one cell in an empire. Cells have a random spread, not a random spread, they have a spread of values. So let's see what this one is. This one's a 4. Okay. So you'll see 4s, you'll see more 3s than 4s and more 2s than 3s. The alien capitals are stored here. So that might be what you see for an empire at the beginning of the game, albeit not necessarily in this location. An empire capital, which is always considered a size 5 cell, and then surrounded by other cells in the empire. Okay, so here we had a 1, a 2, and a 4. Okay. Next to them is the AR Empire fleets. So each one of these represents 1 fleet, unless it's flipped over, and then it's an armada. Armadas have no special characteristics in the game. They're simply a marker that represents 3 fleets, and they can be freely exchanged in and out to reduce clutter on the player's mats, on the AR cards, and on the board itself. Okay. What else do we have here? We showed the capitals. This is the player windows for the different races. Thanks to Vessel, I can't use an actual card that I know how to put grids on to drop items on. So, for instance, drop fleets in here or here. We put cubes on the jacks. Okay. Okay. So let's take a look at a player mat. And I'm going to make it even bigger, make sure everybody can read it. Okay. So as you can see, this is the Terran Confederation. This is the blue player. Whatever color the sequence of play is in is the color of that player's forces. Okay. The capital for a Terran Confederation looks like this, with a star in the center. And then across this we have the same technology levels we found on the board in the bottom right corner: Civ, Call, Explore, and Military. Okay. And the cost for upgrading it to the next level. Okay. Alright. This is simply to make things easier to deal with in the vassal module. If you were playing this face-to-face, the tech columns in the bottom right corner of the map would be easily visible by all players. But in vassal, players have a tendency to zoom in and out a lot on the board, in which case finding and looking at the technology boxes in the bottom right can be problematic. So with them on the player mat, they can see immediately what their different tech levels are. Okay. Next to that is the cell guide. An empire is composed of cells, contiguous cells, and each cell has a level on it, and we'll take a look at some of these. Let's do that. There's an Explorer, level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, and finally a capital, level 5. Okay. So the cell guide tells you what each of these levels of cells can do. So level 1 cell will get you half an action point each turn, and action points are what represent your activity and the degree of your activity, and what types of activity you take each turn. Okay. So if you have, for instance, 2 level 1 cells in your empire, they will together give you 1 action point. Okay. Level 2 cell, however, gives you a full action point by itself. Alright. Level 3 cell is like a level 1 cell in that it generates half an action point, but it generates a full research point. And research points are big in this game. That's how you make your empire more competent with higher activity levels. Okay. Level 4 cell generates a research point and a victory point. Okay. In a level 5 cell, a capital generates 3 victory points every turn. That's all it does. It just sits there and generates victory points. That's your VP engine, primarily for the game. There are other sources of victory points also. So a typical starting empire has 7 cells. And let's go ahead and build one out here. I'm going to go right into the nice meaty part of the galaxy. Okay, so this is your standard configuration for the beginning of the game. Is one level 2 cell surrounded by 6 level 1 cells. And if you paid attention to the guide, that means you're going to get 4 action points on the first turn of the game with this configuration. Oh, we left the door lock out. So as far as terrain goes, let's put this race right here. Let's put them right here. Okay. So here we've got some level 3 terrain where this one is. I'm sorry, level 2 terrain where this one is. Level 3 terrain where this one is. And level 4 terrain down the middle. Okay. Over here we have some level 1. So what that terrain means is that it limits the maximum cell size within that sector. So with an L2, such as in here, this cell can never grow beyond size 2. This cell in level 3 can never go beyond level 3. And these, the gold ones, could go all the way up to being a capital. Okay? And anything in between. Right? If you started with the cell out in level 1, that's as big as it's going to get. It's never going to get any bigger. Okay? So that's how terrain impacts your empire. Right? So ideally, of course, you want to be able to grab as many galactic spiral sectors as you can, the gold color ones, because that allows the highest advancement for your cells in your empire. Okay. So going back to setup again, let's zoom back in for a moment. We see that the blue empire here, the Terrans, are set up within this quadrant between the 2 white lines here. Quadrants are defined by those white lines. You can put a piece at the beginning of the game when you're setting up your empire. You can put a piece on a white line. For instance, it could be right there, but you could put no further. So this would be this sector here, okay, but he could not go any further without straddling these 2 sectors. All right, so he would set up in a sector. The next player, a quadrant. The next player would set up in an adjacent quadrant to blue. The third player would then set up an empire in a quadrant adjacent to blue or player number 2, and so on down the line. If you're sitting down with 6 people, and if you to play this game, and if you do, I envy you. You're each going to pick a quadrant that doesn't have to be adjacent, because with 6 quadrants and 6 players, all quadrants will be filled. So blue might set up here, orange might set up down here, red over here, yellow down here, and so on down the line until all 6 quadrants are filled. Alright. So going back to the player mat, we have the initial setup pieces sitting on the player mat, which you're going to be dragging out to the board, because I'm not that good a vassal designer to make those auto locate on the board when you open up the mat or anything like that. Below that you have the sequence of play, so everybody has that right in front of them. And below that you have your home planet. Pardon us, Europe, while we be Western Hemisphere eccentric. Okay, so the first thing, every turn is player order determination, and as I explained before, first player is always going to proceed to the left clockwise around the table. Okay. Growth phase, you're going to collect your action cubes and plan your actions. So again, if we go back to your basic starting empire, You're going to get 4 action points. You're going to put them in your action point pool. And you're going to allocate these action points amongst these 6 boxes to the right. Now, note that without putting an action cube, 1 or more action cubes in a box, you cannot perform that action during your turn. Note also that in the action phase, which goes in player order, you will be conducting any and all of these that you have action cubes for in the same order that you see the action boxes down here from left to right. Card collection not being listed on here, but that's still something players do every turn. Okay. Once all the players have completed their action phase, we go to caretaker actions, and if there are 1 or more autonomous races on the board, that we're going to draw for their disposition, we're going to draw for their production, and then once for all ARs we're going to draw 1 card to see if any of their technology, any of those races' technology improves. Okay. The step after that is combat resolution, at which point ARs first that are hostile will attack adjacent empires, or even empires that are further than adjacent away if their military technology allows them a jump level 2 or higher. After the ARs have moved, the humans can move, and if the humans are attacking a non-hostile alien race that has no fleets built at that time, then that autonomous race will be allowed an emergency fleet build, which is an F/2 result, if you recall that. So they'll build a number of fleets equal to half the size of their empire. It's only for defense, and we are talking about 100-year turns. So the situation is, to my mind, plausible that they would be able to build some fleets while they're in the process of being attacked. Okay. So once you resolve all your combat, you go to victory point and research point collection, and your empire is going to generate most of that, although friendly relations with ARs will also give you additional victory points. Okay. And then after that, in player order, each player has the opportunity to purchase 1 or more technologies. So to improve their civ from level 1 to level 2, they would spend 4 technology points. Okay. This is where the fleets are kept, and when you build fleets, they go into your reserve. It doesn't matter where, you can put them in any box you want them, and you can also make them armadas if it's representing 3 fleets you've built. Okay. Below that is your action cubes themselves. Obviously, in face-to-face playing of this game, you're going to have a little pile of these sitting somewhere, the general supply, and you'll be dragging the action cubes from here out to here. All right. So let's look at operating an empire. Okay. So we got our 4 points here. There's no point in putting an action point on maintain fleets when you have no fleets. Building fleets is here. Colonize. We're going to do 1 colonize, 1 explore, 1 diplomacy in case we run into bad guys, and 1 aggressive research. Okay. So with our colonize act, we skip the first 2 action possibilities and we go to colonize, and we build 1. We colonize 1 cell. So we're going to make this a level 2. We then explore 1 hex adjacent to our empire, and then we draw a card, and we see that there's nothing of interest here, and so we increase it to a level 1. That's now part of our empire. Okay. Diplomacy would only apply if we encountered an alien race during this turn, or we were already adjacent to an alien race going into this turn. Okay, and then that 1 point of aggressive research is going to go out here on the research points with the token that each player has to count those. Okay, so that's essentially how a turn is handled. And what we're going to do next is we're going to set up a 3-player game, and we're going to use the additional augmentation rule for each starting empire that makes them asymmetrical, so each empire is slightly different at the beginning of the game. Okay, so we're going to start playing the game here. Orange picked first because they were last in the order and they set up their initial empire right here. Purple set up over here, and blue set up over here. Note that in the current state of the rules, no two empires can be within 5 hexes of each other, and we're clearly not violating that rule right now. We're going to use the what is currently an optional rule for enhanced setup, which makes the empires a little more asymmetric. They're identical right now. So you do that on your first turn of the game, and you get 12 points, and you can spend that to improve your starting technologies, to improve by 1 level your starting cells, or just dump them into research points. Okay. So for example, blue going first, we're going to increase colonization and exploration for 8 points, and we're going to spend the remaining 4 points to improve 4 of the starting cells. Okay, so that's their 12 points, so they go ahead and do their turn. Let's drag all these back over here. They're going to get 5 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, oops, 6. 2 level 1s divided by 2 is 1. So they're going to get 6. That's good. That's how many cubes I have out. Okay, so 6 points. We can do 2 colonizers and 2 explorers, because those are the technologies we improved. And we're going to do 1 research, because that's all we can do with the Civ level of 1. And we're going to do 1 in diplomacy, just in case we run into some bad guys. Or good guys, for that matter. Okay, so we're going to do 2 colonizations. We're going to improve this to a 3, and we're going to improve this to 1, because we gotta love them action cubes. Okay, we're going to do 2 explorers, and note that on your turn, when you conduct any exploration, whether it be 1 exploration or more, at least 1 of your explorations must be adjacent to the most current cells in your empire. Okay, the second restriction being your jump range, which right now is level 1 for blue, so they can only move 1 hex outside their empire. And then the third restriction is you cannot daisy chain. So for instance, that satisfies our adjacency requirement. We're adjacent to 2 cells of our empire, but we could not put another exploration marker where it is adjacent only to an unresolved exploration marker. So we're going to put this one down here, and that looks like a good, well, tell you what, let's do this. We'll put it up here. Okay, so we got these 2. So we're going to do this one first, and we're going to draw a card. Nothing of interest, so that means we just flip it over, and then we do this one. Something interesting. So let's draw an investigation card and see what it is. It's an artifact. Okay, so blue will bring out his card window, and he's going to get to keep this artifact. Now, if he turned it in this turn, he would get 2 research points or 2 victory points. But there are 8 of the white artifacts in the deck, so he might choose to hold on to it until he possibly collects a set of them. Okay. All Alright, so he has 1 point in aggressive research. Diplomacy was a waste. You have no way of knowing that beforehand, though. And so diplomacy is most often used after you've encountered ARs to impact your relationship with them. Okay. He got his 1 point of aggressive research, and now he's going to draw a card because his civ level is 1, and that dictates how many cards he can draw and how many he can keep. So this is a nice card. He's going to get an extra research point next turn. Okay. Actually, he's going to get that this turn during the victory and research point collection phase. So rather than trying to remember while I'm explaining this game, I'm going to go ahead and dump that card and give him that point right now. Okay. Legally, of course, you would have to wait until the VPRP collection phase. All right. So blue is done. Let's move to purple. And what does he want to do? Well, purple's going to go crazy with improving his starting empire. So he's going to do this and this and this. Okay, so how many points is that? That's 7, because there's 7 cells. That leaves us 5 points. Okay. We're going to go with an increase in civ to level 2, so we can do more research and more diplomacy if necessary. And then we got 1 point left, and we're going to put it on the research points track. We could have built a fleet, but I don't build fleets early in the game typically. Not with my setup points, that's for sure. Okay. So now, how many points do they get? Wow, they get 6.5, or 6 action points. And since we're civ level 2, we're going to go ahead and drop 2 of them in research. And then the rest we're going to do a colonize and an explore. And we're going to build 4 fleets. Because we can put up to 2 cubes in here, because our mill is 2. And each cube builds 2 fleets. So now we're done allocating. So we go into the action phase. And I should state that when you're playing this game face to face, the growth phase is simultaneous. Everybody is picking and allocating their action cubes at the same time. And after everybody's done with that, you then proceed into the action phase and perform that in player order. Okay. So they built 4 fleets. So we're just going to flip this over to an armada, which is 3. So this is 4 fleets sitting here. Okay. We're going to do 1 colonize. We're going to make this one a level 4. We're going to explore 1 hex. We're going to look at this one. And we found something interesting. And it's a white artifact. Of course, purple doesn't know that blue has one, and vice versa. So they both think that there are 7 more chances to draw one of those. Okay, so purple keeps that on his card window. And then we go to aggressive research for 2 points. And then we draw up to 2. We draw 2 cards because it's a civ limit. Okay, good and a bad. So the good one, we're going to get an extra action point during our growth phase. And this one is going to topple an opposing player's capital. That could be a while before we could use that. That's okay. Alright, so that's purple's turn. We're going to go to orange. And orange has his 12 points, and you know what? He's going to do this. He's going to use all 12 to increase these 3 technology levels to level 2. Alright, so that means he's going to get 4 action points, 6 ones and a 2. And he's going to do a colonize. He's going to do an explore. You know what? He's going to do 2 of each, and that's all he's going to do. So like the other 2 players before him, he's going to go bare-ass naked out into the Milky Way galaxy. So let's see here. We're going to increase that to a 3. And increase this to a 2. That's our 2 colonizes. We've got 2 explorers. One of them has to be adjacent to the most cells in the Empire. And the other one's going to go here. So we're going to resolve this one first. Nothing of interest. And the other. Nothing of interest. Okay. He has no diplomacy. He has no research. Time to draw cards for him, and he draws 2. A hurtful card. Oh, and an immediate. Social lethargy. If your Civ Tech is 2 or higher, and as we can see, Orange's is. This card stays in your hand and counts towards your hand limit until such time as you are attacked by another player or an autonomous force. At that point, show everyone the card, discard it, and immediately draw 5 fleets and put them in your fleet reserve. So this thing just eats hand size until such time that hostilities occur against you. Okay, lovely little card, sucking up hand limit. Alright, so now we proceed to caretaker actions. If there were any alien races on the board, the caretakers would handle their behavior. The caretaker is going to be the player responsible for handling an autonomous race. They become that race's caretaker. You assign caretakers when you encounter autonomous races immediately. So the rules for who gets the autonomous race is A, it can't be the player who drew the race. B, it has to be the player that has the fewer or fewest autonomous races they are caretaker for currently. And the third one is the race farthest away from the player drawing the card. Okay. And we neglected to update this right there. Okay. So anyway, that's Orange's 2 explorers. They have no diplomacy, no aggressive research. We drew cards. We're in caretaker. There is no caretaker. Combat resolution can only occur if a player is adjacent to an autonomous race or another player. Okay, then we go to VPRP, Victory Point and Research Point Collection. So we're just going to go top down. If we look at blue, they get 1 research point for their level 3. Orange gets 1 for their level 3. And purple gets 1 and 1 victory point, because that's what level 4 cells do. Okay, and 1 victory point. Alright, so now we would purchase new technologies, but the minimum cost for any technology is 4 at the beginning, and nobody has 4 points. Okay, so we go to turn 2, and I forgot to reflect the starting set up technology improvements. So let's do that right now. So blue is a level 2 here, level 2 here, and level 2 here. Okay, and purple is a level 2 here. And orange is a level 2 for the leftmost 3. Okay. Just so you can see what's going on down there. Alright. Okay. So we go to turn 2. Play passes to the left. We reshuffle the deck. And we start the next turn with purple. Okay, oh. We forgot to flip that one. Okay. So purple is going to get 6.5 action points, which is 6. And they currently have 6 out there. Let's see if we want to change anything. Well, we're going to maintain our fleets, which takes 2 cubes for 4 fleets, because our Miltech level is 2, and each cube can maintain 2 fleets. We're going to do colonize. Just want to double check. Yeah, thought so. He should be at 2. Alright. So we're going to do 1 colonization. And we want to get more research. We're going to do 1 explore. Let's do it right here. Nothing of interest. Okay. Oh! And we played this card during this turn. So that gave us an extra action point. Where do we want to put that? We'll build 2 more fleets because purple is paranoid. Okay. So we've done colonization and exploration. We have no diplomacy. We get 2 points in aggressive research. Okay. Then we draw cards, and he gets to draw 2 but keep only 2. Yeah. We'll keep the really nasty one. Okay. Purple's done. Next is orange. Orange gets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 4, 5 action points. So we'll stick with what we got here and throw in, we'll throw in 1 research point. Okay, so we're doing 2 colonize. We'll do this and this. 2 explorers. We have to do 1 here because that's adjacent to the most empire cells is 3. And then we can put the other one where we want within reason. I'm going to put it right there. So let's do this one first. Hey, alien race. What do you know? Alright. Who is it? Oh, let's put a reminder out there so I don't lose track of where we put it. Right there. Okay. It's the Moton. Okay, let's drag it over where you can see it zoomed in. So they have a, they're prone to being neutral. That's where the arrow indicates. And they're going to start out as a size 3 with a Miltech level 2. And they are race number 9. Right, so here's the window for keeping track of all their statuses. And then let's get out the capital. and they are a size 3, so they get 2, and then the capital. Okay, so when building or expanding an autonomous race, they always must place their next cell as close to many of their own cells as possible. Okay, so we've got the Moton out there now. What's their initial disposition towards Orange? Orange has no diplomacy to spend. They may regret that. Let's see what happens. 29. No, they're good. They are actually friendly. So we'll put an orange marker on friendly. Okay. So that's going to give Orange a victory point if this status holds up until the victory point and research point collection. We'll see. Okay, we're just going to put him, we're going to put him right over here for now. Okay, size 3, Miltech 2. We're good. Okay, so the other exploration attempt is nothing of interest. Okay, we then have 1 point in aggressive research, and we can draw 2 cards. Can't hold that one. Gotta hold this one. So which of these other 2 do we want? We want to keep this one. So we'll discard the bad card. And there is Orange. Okay. So we're done with the players. We go to caretaker action. So this time it applies. So per AR, we draw for disposition. Again, if Orange had a diplomacy cube and he hadn't used it yet, he could use it now. He does not. And so we got a 24, and we look at that, and the Moton are even friendlier. They want to go bowling with us and have parties and all sorts of stuff. Okay. So that's good for Orange. It's very good for Orange. And we have no others. And then we draw for Miltech for all autonomous races. And that is a 25, and he advances on 45 through 49, so his Miltech does not advance. Okay? Go to combat resolution. So Orange, having 2 fleets, could go and attack the Moton, but they're getting 2 victory points from being friendly with the Moton every turn. So who the heck wants to do that, right? Alright, so we go to VPRP, and we're going to go ahead and give Orange his 2 victory points for the Moton, and then we're going to look at each empire and see what it generates. So this blue generates 1 research point. That's all it generates. Orange generates 1 research point and 1 victory point. And purple generates 1 victory point and 2 research points. Okay, so now we're at victory point technology purchase, starting with purple, and he has 6 points. And what does purple want to do with those, if anything? Yeah, he wants to improve his colonization level. So let's increase it over here. And he's done, and now we go to Orange. Orange has 3 points, he can do nothing. So go to blue. Blue has 4 points. He's going to increase his civil, which I had mistakenly put at 2 on here already, but now it's correct. Okay, and he used all 4 of his points. That's it. We go to turn 3. I think I'm going to stop it there. This recording has gone on probably longer than anybody's patience. And the only thing we didn't get to see was actual combat, and I plan to cover that in an additional shorter video. But I want to thank you for your time, and hope that this video piqued your interest in this game. Thanks.